Great leaders don't need an outgoing personality or a talent for public speaking. Great leadership goes beyond the surface. Now, we know that, but do our kids? My next guest says that if you want to instill leadership skills in your children, we need to start by redefining the term because they may have it wrong. Studio 5 contributor Shima Baughman is here to explain. I am all ears here because I think this is something all parents want. Like, you want your child to feel that sense of ownership and leadership in some capacity, but you say it needs to start with that definition.
Yes, I think it's interesting because as adults, I think we know we can learn new things. If we're not patient, we can grow patient.
Yeah.
If we don't like working out, we can learn to like to work out.
Can we?
Yes, we can, little by little, right? And as kids, I think sometimes they can get stuck and think that they're in a box and, you know, I'm outgoing and my sister is good at dance and my brother is this, and they don't think they can be anything they want. So I think it's our role as parents to remind them, you can change. You can be whoever you want to be. And we are all leaders, right? That's something everyone can be. And I think, you know, growing up for me, it's like I moved around every couple years and I use it as an opportunity to kind of change and become a new person. And if I didn't like, you know, necessarily how I was in one school, I could be someone different and be more outgoing or less, you know, less of this and that and choose different friends. There's all these options. And I think sometimes kids think everyone's watching them. I couldn't dare change my clothing style or hairstyle or personality, but no one really is actually watching anyone else. Everyone, especially as the younger you are, it's more so as you get older, even, you know, still the same.
It's a look in the mirror society.
Yeah, it's like everyone's kind of worried about how they're coming across. And I just think teaching our kids, you can be anything you want to be.
Leadership can be taught.
Can be taught.
And in that sense, I mean, we're often taught to reward the effort, not the outcome. And I find myself thinking here, we should be vocally rewarding leadership efforts, like see how they grew or see how they progressed, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, kind of talking to your kids when you see things that they're doing that show leadership that they might not think of as leadership. And the best example I was thinking of today is there's an adorable girl in my neighborhood named Mila, and she got up and told all the kids, you know, it was at our church meeting, and she said, I like to go to the buddy bench at school. So their school has a buddy bench where if anyone doesn't have a buddy and they're looking for one, they'll sit there. And she's like, I go to the buddy bench every day and I try to find a buddy if somebody doesn't have one. And I just thought that was such a beautiful example of leadership because she's showing everyone else, you know, this beautiful act of service, and then everyone's looking to her and she's not afraid to say she's going to go reach out.
She's going to do it. Go Mia.
Yeah.
And it could be celebrated as kindness, and it was, or it could be celebrated as friendship, and it was. But to say that word,
it's
leader.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what they need to hear is that word, leadership. Like when we point out to them, that was a really good leadership trait that you showed, you know, and they were like, well, leader, you know what? And I think they start to see that though. I think they pick up pretty early on, you know, who's a leader, who's popular, who's outgoing. I mean, all of those types of things, they come in their consciousness at school. And I think when you say, you know, you're a leader, I think that can make them feel empowered.
Absolutely. You believe that in order to raise leaders, we have to celebrate boldness in the home.
Yes, and one example of this, you don't have teenagers yet, but
not yet.
This was a few years ago. I had my teenager and I was driving before he could drive, my second son, and we're driving in the car, and you know, somehow teenagers just think the parents driving is just not listening or doing, you know, like, I don't know how that happens, but it's magical.
You're a ghost.
You just
disappear.
You disappear in the
You literally are the fly on the wall, the window of the car.
There. So I'm just not there. And they're talking about, they had gone to a Halloween show, and you know, I'm just driving. And anyway, one of them is just like, tomorrow's church. I hate going to church. And you know, two others are like, I don't go to church. And one of the kids was kind of like trying a little bit like tease Darian, and they're like, oh, Darian, like he always like says the answers at church or something, like trying to make fun of him. And Darian's like, yeah, like I like church. And I was like, it was like one of those, like, I'm like, did my kids just, and I mean, this is not to say my kids are perfect. They are not.
You veer off the road. That was my kid.
But I like afterwards was like, wow, Darian, that was really bold of you to say that when your friends were all talking about how they don't like church and it's hard to get up and they you know, they don't know what they believe and all this stuff. And he was like, I like church. And I'm like, and I mean, maybe he was just like, mom's listening, so he's smarter than But I was impressed, and I've seen other friends do that. And I just think when you show that boldness, that is leadership. And if you can show your kids, like, that is how to be a leader.
It bends my brain a little bit too in ways that they might be showing boldness, like demonstrating it to me. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes we might pass that off as like resistance, right? Or even disobedience to an extent. I don't know if that's the right word, but like we should be looking for those bold moments and letting them land maybe a little bit
and
easier.
sometimes I think my kids convince me with their boldness of like, they have good arguments and I'm like, oh, like makes it, with logic. And I'm like, okay, that was good. It's like they convince you of something that you're doing wrong or something that you could do better. And I'm down for that.
Don't you love when your kids surprise you?
Yes.
In those ways. You say Queen Latifah is a great example of someone who lives hand over heart, uses her boldness for good. We plucked this quote, "Be bold," she said, "be brave enough to be your true self."
Yes, I love her. So first of all, I mean, she is just, in the older generation of this beautiful example of just, she is who she is, right? She's this, the first lady of hip hop. She's one of the first rappers, awarded, then becomes an actress. And she's not just kind of a side actress, she becomes the lead actress in a bunch of romantic comedies. And they're not as famous as some of the others, but one of them is called Last Holiday. That's one I really liked. But I like them because she's a star, and it's like, this was 2006 when she did some of these. And it's like, this was not at the time of body positivity.
Right.
You remember, right?
Right.
She was at the forefront of this, of like a leading lady who doesn't look like
all the other leading ladies being celebrated at that
exactly.
time.
And nowadays they do, but I think she was just really at the forefront of not only body positivity, also she's been famously kind of celebrated for saying no to certain scenes, certain lines that she didn't kind of mesh with her faith. So I just appreciate that her boldness in every way, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a rapper and I'm going to be an actress, but I'm not going to say and do those things that you want me to say. And it's like, what go?
I love that you're pointing us to that example. And it dovetails so nicely into your last point. You want us to remind our kids that not all leaders are the same.
Yes. And I think this is important for someone like me who grew up shy. I was more quiet.
Were you shy?
I know, right? Yes, I was.
Really?
Oh, very, very shy. And I think through moving, through forcing myself to make friends, I mean, I'm definitely introverted, and that's, the shyness. But I think you can learn all these things. And I think some of the best leadership moments I've seen in my career, in my job, associate dean and other jobs, is people that don't say a word for a whole meeting or a whole, class. And then at the end, they raise their hand and they say something profound, and it shifts the entire conversation and dialogue. And I just think sometimes we don't think about quiet leadership.
Yes.
Quiet leadership is so powerful.
I have learned in a meeting, in a room, in a conversation to respect the thinkers.
Yes.
Right? Like our world celebrates, and my industry in particular celebrates kind of the spoken or the outgoing.
Right.
But it's like I've learned to find the thinker in the room and wait and see when they speak, because it's usually 10 times more profound.
And typically they're thinking, they're thoughtful, they're listening to everyone else really well. So it's all these other leadership skills are showing, but they're also not afraid to say the hard thing.
Yes.
Right? And that's the boldness that we celebrate too.
I feel more bold after this conversation, and our kids will too when we put these into practice. Thank you, Shima, for reflecting and bringing these lessons to the forefront.
Thank you.